O-O-T-C. Hey, that's cool.
You got a podcast?
Well, I didn't know that.
That's cool.
Now you do.
Welcome. We are back. Oh, that's cool. OTC's very own podcast, all about the amazing people we work with. I, of course, am Jared Durden, and with me as always,
I am Andrew Crocker. Sir, we had a winter break. It was an impromptu winter break. How'd you cope? How'd you manage?
Well, I get a lot of anxiety when those happen, just because then I'm worried about everything that could go wrong, and I focus too much on, I'm not going to be able to do this or that, or, this might happen. But I'm learning to just kind of relax and go with it and, trust my students, kind of, go with the flow. This time went very well. I feel like we're back on track. You always kind of worry about the momentum, right, of the course, especially when you're kind of building on content. But they're getting ready to take their first test next week. I think we successfully survived. How was
the way you said it? You trust your students to manage it. I take the old Reagan approach where I trust but verify.
Trust but verify. Yes.
So I trust that they get it, but I know there's a percentage of them. I had to cancel a week of classes. I came down with a case a few weeks back, and so that was a week that we missed on top of the snow break. And so that was basically 2/3 of my semester so far was basically an online class that they did not sign up to take. They signed up to take an in-person class.
That's right. And
so it worked for most of them. Most of them, that's fine. But you got to find a way to reach. When we got back, we had ourselves a few exams and quizzes and stuff. And you see some people that are completely out of it. You got to reach out to them and give them an alternate bridge back to normalcy. And so, yeah, the trusting them to do the right thing, trusting them to stay on top of it, worked out pretty well for most of them. But it's always that. Let me ask you something. When you have to toggle your class basically between in-person to online and then back to in-person.
I say call an audible.
Basically, has that worked okay for you, or is everything completely
pretty well? I taught that first summer in 2020 when we came back fully online and had never really done it before. So ever since then, I've had a lot of practice with it now. So I can pretty well run a Zoom class where they're engaged. I use the breakout rooms, and so I do a lot of group work, and I still do that even online. And I find that works pretyou well. It works pretty well.
What about, so the $1 million question when it comes to snow days, were you able to get on a sled? Or did you do any sledding? Did you build a snowman? Did you?
I did donuts.
You did donuts? Okay.
Yeah, I like driving in it.
Okay, sure. Yeah. I still now I have kids, so I have an excuse. But I've never grown out of sledding. Sledding is still fun.
I enjoy it, but yeah, we didn't this round. I remember as a kid, we used to really get a little too crazy, and we lived way out in Elkland, so we'd tie feed troughs to the back of pickup trucks and then drive with those, and so sled, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you're sledding.
That's like tubing or something like that
on
a lake.
Yeah.
That's hysterical. Anybody ever slam into a tree or anything like that? I mean, that's gotta be
Oh yeah, obviously. I'm very lucky, and again, I should say, do not try this at home.
Yeah, yeah.
But I missed that a little bit. Now it's I've definitely toned down the adventure setting, but I like a little snow danger still.
So can I give you a little props here? Little exciting stuff in your life going on in the audio world. First of all, you are getting a visit with our very own Jeff Johnson. You're going to have an episode on his podcast. Is that happening?
Oh, I was invited to. I have not followed up with that and need to figure that out. Thank you for reminding me. Actually,
now there's another audio opportunity for you. Is that your band is finally releasing an album and you're getting a chance to promote it on KSMU locally? Is that right?
We got a new one. It'll be in August. So it's a ways off still.
But are you recording you're doing
We've
your
recorded everything, but now we're still mixing and doing some editing stuff. And we all have full-time jobs, so it's like we get together once a month kind of thing when we can. And
you and I were talking before this went live about what are we looking forward to doing after this is all past us. Maybe just a theorists show. the name of your band is Theorists. Maybe just that's what I'm
well,
looking
after
forward
we
to.
play,
Surely in August, we can gather.
After anybody that does the KSMU live, they always go over to Tie and Timber that evening and play a show. So
now we're talking.
yeah, you guys are welcome.
Now we're talking. Yeah, you don't have to invite me twice.
Okay. But I wanted to say too, we owe our listeners an apology. We missed our routine. We were actually supposed to record this episode a couple weeks ago, but then snow and everything else happened.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a little bit of catch up. But I wanted to announce that we're going on tour.
Yes, we are.
And we're going to start. We're going to visit.
On the road.
We're going on the road. We're going to visit the other campuses, starting at Table Rock, and we're going to record a couple up there. And look out for our flyers. We made a couple flyers because we want to pick up listeners. We just want to get everybody in all the campuses involved. And I was looking at today, and actually, can you guess what our average per episode number of listeners are?
Average number of listeners. I'm going to say, are we 50?
59.
59.
Yeah,
that's good. Thank you all. I'm going to say 59 of you. Thank you all for giving us an opportunity for this flimsy pretext to talk to some of our really, really fun coworkers. And for the record, we don't have people booked at every location, do we yet? Should we invite people? No. If you are from a satellite campus, please message us, contact us, leave a comment on social media. Tell us this person at our remote campus, this is somebody you need to talk to. Because
absolutely,
we don't have a ton. I don't have a ton of connections. Waynesville, Lebanon, stuff like that. So by all means.
Yeah, we'd love to hear. And what do you want to hear about? Who do you want to hear from?
Big time.
Speaking of, today we are hearing from someone on the Springfield campus. We have a very special guest. With us is Jacque Harris from the Center for Academic Innovation here on Springfield campus. How are you doing, Jacque?
I'm good. Glad to be here. I am one of the 59 listeners I've listened to. Nearly every episode.
Yeah, well, I'm shocked that it has taken us this long to rope you in, because I've been on a multi-year campaign now to change the mascot of OTC from the Eagles to the OTC Jacque Harrises with all
OTC Jackies.
And I forgot in your introduction, 2-time award-winning Trailblaze Award winner Jacque Harris.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. Well deserved, too. Well deserved.
I find the Trailblazer Award probably going to be the most meaningful award that I ever get, just because I was nominated by and then voted for by my colleagues. So it's
like the People's Choice Award of OTC.
Yeah.
I am willing to bet that the number of those awards you win will not stop it, too. I
don't think you can win. I didn't think you could win 2 of those.
Rules were made to be broken, Jacque.
We're like, no, we're tossing that out. No, it's got enough.
So tell us about yourself and your relationship to the college.
Well, I've been at OTC for since 2011, so 10 going on 11 years. First year was part-time, started at Blackboard support, and I'm an instructional designer, so a lot of people kind of get stuck on what even does that mean. So if you take it fairly literally, you know what the word instruction means, and you know what the word design means. So I work with faculty to design their instruction.
Yeah, we're doing that right now. You and I are kind of on the fly. You and I are creating a new political science course, essentially out of the dirt. You and I have grabbed our sticks and we're carving in the dirt. You do this and we'll try this, and it's been lots of fun because not every idea has worked, but the experiment of it all has been. But the class has been great, as you could expect with a brand new class. We've gotten the interested students. It's kind of they've kind of self-selected themselves for the gig, and so I don't know. It'd be interesting to see when this class actually becomes more mainstream, because for now, they're really eating up everything you and I have planned. They're just happy to be here, especially after the couple weeks we were out of commission. They're just happy to be here and doing everything that kind of you drew up in the dirt for us.
Yeah. I remember, what's weird for me about that course in particular is that we worked on it so long ago, long in instructional design time ago. It was, and then it didn't launch. It didn't make one semester. Yeah. So it feels so far in the past, but it's brand new at the same time, and we're still working on it. So that time delay is weird for me
Yeah.
on that one. But I want to see some of the artifacts that students come up with based on like the assignments that we designed, because those were really good. And I know that your students are always really engaged, and the issues that they're looking at in the course are really engaging. So,
well, speaking of engaging, you and I have worked together now for several years with Kara Griffin to hold an annual event every March we call it Springfield Votes. Every year. We've been doing this since 2019. And what we do is, well, do you want to give them a rundown of what Springfield Votes it does every mid-March?
So Springfield Votes is like the tagline I like to use is "Show me the ballot." So it's like a live action version of the ballot. So Andrew and Kara do all of the legwork, and I just make a flyer for it. So Andrew gets all the people who are running for office or people who represent or are opposed to issues on the ballot, and we get them together. We did it virtual one year because COVID, but the first year we did it over in Lincoln, and invite the community and students, and a lot of PLS students come for extra credit, and they can talk to the actual candidates and hear from people for and opposed to whatever issues are on the ballot in person themselves. And then we have a little packet for them to kind of make notes like, I agree with this person on this and I disagree about that. And then that way they can go to the ballot prepared because they are an informed voter. Or
just for starters, just get them to go vote, because these elections, we didn't specify.
Oh, yeah.
These elections are local elections. They are for our city council. They are for our school board.
Yeah.
And we've had stuff like Prop S and Prop A and B and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's these local races that people just do not pay attention to. They just pretty much don't care about.
Yeah.
And most of them, like my students, have no idea that there's elections in April. They have no clue. And so we can hold an event, invite OTC, open it up to the broader public, but really drill down on the student body.
Yeah.
And get them to recognize, first of all, that there is an election. First of all, that there is one. And second of all, that they can go vote. And when you approached me about it, you described it as a human library. What did you mean by that? Yeah.
So there's a human library. It's a thing, and I mean, I don't know how they've fared through the pandemic, but it is these events where people who might face some sort of stigma or there's some sort of stereotype about them gather together in a space, and the public is invited to kind of ask them questions and interact with them and learn more about a person they might have had misconceptions about. So I wanted to do a similar thing, but with like local ballot initiatives.
Yeah.
because there's not a lot of interest in local elections and local ballot initiatives, but those are the ones that affect our lives the most closely.
And so we have done this a couple different ways. One way, back in the before times, we went to Lincoln and we set up a big oval, and all the tables are just various people running for offices. Yeah. There, we had a table for people advocating. Stand by. Okay. We had a table of people advocating for Prop S and a table of people advocating against Prop S. And then we had all the candidates running for the various seats, school board and city council. We had like 100 people turn out for it. But the whole idea is that you could walk through the room and like a library, you can check out a book. No, you could check out a candidate and you could talk to them about how do you feel about this or that.
Yeah. I was there.
Was that?
I was there.
Who'd you talk to? You remember?
Oh boy. Yes. A couple school board candidates. Mm-hmm. There were some people there. I can't remember what proposition was, but it was about.
It was S. The one with it had to be S.
The issues with the Chromebooks in public schools. Yeah.
They were adamantly opposed to.
So there were two. We had two of these arrangements. One was a big oval, and you could go and like I said, you could talk to a candidate. But Prop S was the one that I think you were interested in, that you had talked to. But the most important thing is now you know who these school board people are.
Yeah.
And then online was really last year was really your bag of tricks. We had to set up a website. Yeah. That people could go, and then like there were chat rooms, like chat rooms where you can go and have a Match.com date or something like that with a candidate of your choice.
I was really surprised at how much engagement we got for the virtual event because it was in the early-ish days of COVID. It was, everybody was sick of Zoom, but people were familiar, and we actually used Teams, and it was like really early after OTC got Teams that we used it. And so it could have, and I was just saying this the other day, like it could have been so much worse, but technically we really didn't have a ton of issues, and we had a lot of really good engagement from the community. So we had the politically active volunteers manning each of the different rooms with each of the different candidates, and then Kara was helping the mayor, who had the most technical difficulties there. It was just a Teams thing, but we had good engagement, and the questions, there were a lot of really active conversations with the candidates. So I thought it went really well. It wasn't quite as exciting for me for it not to be in a room full of people, because that was the original idea.
You just like the room. I like the room. I like the energy of the buzzing of the room.
Yeah, I like seeing people engaged with like their community. This is your community. This is our community that we all share. So like that's important. We're building the world that we share together and the community that we live in. So get excited about it. Like everybody should be really excited about it, and most of the time people aren't. So
is it online or in person this year?
We're doing this in person if we can.
So where, date, time?
We have a date. It is the first Wednesday after spring break.
March 23rd.
Thank you. It'll be in the evening. We're thinking 5:30 to 7. That's when we've done it in the past.
Lincoln Hall again?
Lincoln Hall. Yep. And so this year, last year there were 8 open seats, 21 people running. So that was just, especially we were doing this online for the first time. It was a heavy lift.
Yeah.
This year we have 5 people running for 2 open seats. So that's going to be a lot more manageable. We're looking forward to that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be awesome.
Some colorful characters running this year too. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Good. So back to you, Jackie. Instructional design. Is that where you started at OTC? Is that where you started your career? What brought you here?
I started, okay, so that's like 7 different questions. So I started as like Blackboard support and then transitioned into instructional design. What brought me to OTC, I actually worked at a general contracting firm here in town. And then around 2008, I noticed, hey, usually my board is full of projects and it's not. And my boss was like, oh no, things will pick up. It's just been a bad winter. And then it didn't. And so, it wasn't a great time to be in that industry. And I started attending OTC, I think in 2009, maybe. I was a student at OTC. And it was funny because a friend of mine was like, I've always wanted to be a teacher. I'm going to go be a teacher. I'm going to take classes at OTC. And I was like, how are you going to do that? Because we both worked full time. Like I was working well, that's not different than now, but like 50, 60 hours a week. But not, anyways. So I was working and I couldn't imagine like going to school because when would I do that? And she said, I'm taking classes online. And I was like, they do that? and so she was like, yeah. And I was like, well, I'm going to do it. And then within like a couple of hours, I had a date to come in for STAR, and like I was a student at OTC. And the best thing about it was like, I didn't know how to navigate the system. No one I knew, no one in my family had been to college. So I was like, well, what do you just go to their website and like type in how to, and so there was a getting started. And they still have like that getting started process right on the website. And I was like, oh, well, this is easy. It's just click, just follow these 7 easy steps. And then bam, I was a student. And I was actually wanted to be a classroom teacher. And then just the work here led me into instructional design, and then several years later and $22,000 of student debt. I'm down to $8,000. I'm going to get that paid off.
Congratulations. What was your favorite class you took at OTC?
Oh, gosh. Okay, so I have to say also, I'm not going to name the names of my bachelor's and master's institutions, but I will say the best education I got was here at OTC. Like, the best quality of instruction. The teachers were the most engaged here. Michelle Hudgens' children's lit class was fabulous. My education classes here were great. Psychology classes were great. I didn't love my biology class. And that's mostly because, like, it felt like a whole lot of, like a lot of kind of busy work. There was a lot of these, and they're old. They're not in the biology classes anymore. But they were the publisher Flash fake labs that you kind of click through. And the Flash integrations were always breaking. And, so it wasn't the best experience. Not that I don't think science online can be good. I think just at that time, that was the product that was being used and it wasn't super great. But I loved my online public speaking class. And people say that online public speaking is not a thing you can do, but you can. And Todd Yerby will show you how it's done. Dude was responsive. Like, every time I was like, hey, I got a question. Bam. Like, or you just waiting for my email 24 hours a day.
It feels counterintuitive, right? Because you think, oh, public speaking is talking in front of people, but it's just but you still are talking in front of people in this new medium. And if you're honest with yourself, we tend to be online more and more and more and more as our medium when we're speaking.
But the public speaking. So if I'm speaking to a room full of people, if I slip up or something, that's normal. Like, you just mirror and you kind of just go on. And plus, you're going to walk out of that room and leave people only with what their memory wants to keep. If you're recording a video, that can be replayed and your worst moments can be replayed. So people say, like, you get to re-record it. Yeah, but it's it has this permanence about it. And I can tell you that is true for, like, faculty. Because a lot of our faculty, I'll do, like, their welcome videos with them. And it is amazing to see people who every single day get up in front of a classroom of students and speak to them and engage with them and love it. Just really kind of stiffen up in front of a camera and not really know what to do. So a lot of times Amy and I would get behind be like, you're talking to us, and just kind of wave. And Eloise Thomas actually has a cutout of me, a picture of me kind of look on top of her monitor.
Of course she does.
So she's like, I look at my picture of Jackie, and then I have someone that I'm talking to. It feels more personal. It feels more real. But, yeah.
There's something about speaking to a camera that seems to take a different part of your brain, like a different muscle or something.
Yeah.
I was actually reading an article about why it is that some people, like myself, don't love small talk as much as, like, getting down into beefier conversations.
Yeah.
And it's because some research indicates that kind of engaging in small talk takes a different skill set than you'd think it's all talking, but no, it actually occupies a completely different skill set than, like, the more meatier conversations. And I feel like that's the truth too when you're talking to a class. I feel like that's the same with class size. What about you? Like, when I'm talking to a class of 30 people, I'm way more comfortable than I am when I'm talking to a class of, like, 5-6 people.
Yeah, the more people, the easier it is. It doesn't feel as that there's that intimacy when there's a smaller group, right? And there's it's easier to kind of keep track of everyone. And if you're spending all your time doing that, then you're really being self-conscious about everything that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And I really struggled with that initially recording videos, because I would re-record until the best advice I got was, you make mistakes when you talk in person.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
keep going. right? And it really humanizes you a little more too.
Oh, yeah. You know, it's funny because Amy and I, we used to do this, what we're excited about for the semester, and we would kind of talk about the faculty we're working with and the projects we're doing. And we would do a lot of videos together, which is how I found out, incidentally, that I am significantly taller than Amy. I thought we were the same height for like 4 years. We're not.
Are you sure it's not platforms? Or
I'm not able to see the size of people, apparently, within a certain range. If they're close enough, I just kind of lump together. But we used to do a ton of videos, and she always wanted to kind of practice. And I was like, I just got to do it. And like, bam. And second take for me every time. Second take. First take, that's where you're going to make all your mistakes. Second take, done. And I always say, it's not getting any better. After the second take for me, it's not getting better. Only going downhill because you'll start thinking about it. Your second take, bam. But Amy likes to practice, and she gets better, so that's really hard because like she's getting better as I'm getting worse. So we just kind of have to figure out where those lines cross.
Where they meet in the middle.
Yeah.
So one thing we like to ask our guests to get better, to know them better, who is someone that inspires you, someone you look up to, someone you'd like to share with our listeners that they may not know of?
Okay, so I have an answer because you're basically
feels like this is coming out of an Oscar envelope, and the winner is
like your heroes, right? And so I made this last year. I volunteered over at the child care center, so when they couldn't let parents back, I was the one who walked the kids to class and back, which was the greatest experience ever. I loved it. I miss the kids so much. I do get to go over Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at lunchtime and nap time and see but I'm just with one classroom of kids, and I love those kids. That's the big personality room, by the way. But I miss like all the kids and the parents and the other teachers. But I left this note card. I gave them this note card. So this is my heroes. It's very official here. Okay, so I'm not an emotional person, but if I get teary, I'm just going to stop and hand you guys this and you can read it.
Okay.
Now, Jackie, if you make mistakes, just keep on going, right? You don't need to start over and hand us the card.
Don't worry. See, like I figured for you guys, it's kind of a risk having me on your show because no telling what's going to come out of my face. So
we had Jeff Jones. You're fine.
Oh.
I mean, you've heard us in general before, right?
Okay, so this is my heroes. Every day, I hope to be as persistent and joyful at learning new things as my explorer friends. The explorers is the youngest class at the time. They have an infant toddler now, but they didn't have the time. Okay. As confident that I may bring value and joy to others as my adventurer friends, as wise in accepting support when I need it as my navigator friends, as diligent in striving to become master of myself as my investigator friends, and as peaceful, loving, and consistent as their teachers. Boom, my heroes.
Very nice.
They are inspiring.
Oh, yeah.
They are inspiring.
It is remarkable. If you have any chance to interact with the faculty, the teachers, the staff, the kids over at the Early Childhood Center, I would take advantage of it. They're amazing. Dealing with
preschool kids myself, as I do, much of what they're learning is meta learning. You know, they're not so much learning. They're learning a little bit of ABCs and such, but for the most part, they're just learning how to learn, like raise your hand to be respectful. And the thing that I recognize in my students, the thing that my students here at OTC have in common with those little 3 and 4-year-olds is they want to learn these things. They want to pick them up. It's really, really important to them that they get recognized by their teacher, because it's nice to have a teacher recognize you, but it's a signal that you care so much about other people, that you're willing to raise your hand, that you're willing to wait in line, that you're willing to share. Yeah. And they take a point in pride in being able to pick that stuff up. I know that maybe their thought process on this is not as deep as I'm ascribing it to, but it is a beautiful thing to observe. And you do see it in its adult manifestation with a lot of our students here.
Yeah, absolutely. They practice conscious discipline at the Child Care Center. It is absolutely the way we should all live. Just the caring and the respect that you extend to others, and just that acknowledgement that you have control of yourself. So it's about how you want to interact with the world, the community, the universe around you. You can't necessarily fix everything that's wrong, or you can't control what other people do, but you have a choice in what you're putting into the world.
And a lot of my teaching style and philosophy has been affected by watching preschool teachers deal with my kids, which is kind of a funny thing to say, but it's absolutely true. I wish we all learned from them a little bit, because when these kids make mistakes, as we'll call it, get in trouble, make bad decisions, they're rarely punished, at least in my purview, they're rarely punished with scorn. Instead, they're responded to with understanding and like a thoughtful breakdown of why you don't do this, why it's important not to do that.
Yeah.
And we kind of lose that as they get older, and especially as they become adults. These people, even though we're all grown, we still make bad decisions. We still make mistakes. And I wish our response to that more often was understanding and trying to borrow a phrase we picked up from Daniel Oganyemi, was meeting people where they are a little bit more, like we do with tiny little kids.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more similar to like restorative practices, right?
Yeah.
So it's not punitive. You did something wrong. This is what's going to happen to you because you did something wrong, purely because I have the power to enact that punishment. It's much more about, hey, did you notice what happened because of what you did, and how that hurt someone, or how that could have made things unsafe, or how that impacts what we can do next because we're having to deal with this situation. Did you see that chain of events that you set off with that action? And then, really helping children learn, like, oh, what I do does matter, positive and negative, in the world around me, and to be conscious of that. And I think absolutely everybody could benefit from that. You called
it restorative.
I said it's similar to like a restorative.
Yeah, rehabilitative is with what I've had in my head for the longest time. But restorative, I mean, it's same concept.
But it's they use conscious discipline, so that's the structure of the type of curriculum that they use. But yeah, you should have somebody from ECD on talking about conscious discipline. That would be a good one.
There you go. So at the end too, we'll ask you to suggest someone.
Yeah.
So that'll be great. And for everyone, one opportunity to interact is during Halloween. They do a parade, right? And you can invite them to come down your hall.
Yes. They didn't do it last couple of years because COVID. So I don't know if they will again, but they do.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. But they do ask for, like, hey, you can send treats over, and then they package them up and give them to kids. But hopefully they'll be able to have it this year. It's the cutest event on campus, and it's one of my top 5 favorite events that the college has. So
okay, name your top 5 favorite events.
Okay, so the kiddos,
clearly the Halloween
kiddos,
stroll.
Graduation, the film festival, which I don't know if that's gonna come back, but
no,
I know, here's hoping, and the picnics, and I can't remember what the 5th one was, and it's probably something that we just haven't been able to do because COVID. So all my favorite events are gone. Mm-hmm. Thanks, COVID.
Yeah.
So
Springfield Boats is climbing that ladder, though.
Springfield Boats was I added when we had it. So yeah, it's definitely up there. So yeah.
So the big question: Gumby versus Mr. Ed, battle to the death. Okay. Who wins?
I got this,
and why?
And I'm so glad that I'm going to get to answer this. And then I can listen to Pat Peterson because you said her answer was really good. I
can't imagine you sitting in your office listening to this podcast and grumbling when you hear an answer you disagree with.
Well, yeah, or people who when somebody hasn't heard of either, and I'm like, what do you even mean you haven't heard of them? That's pop culture, and it's not like I was around when Mr. Ed was new, but it was in syndication. Yeah. I guess we don't consume media over broadcast as much as anyways. And Mr. Ed didn't make it on Netflix.
It's very diffuse now, yeah.
So, okay, I'm going with Mr. Ed First of all, I would like to lay a foundation of why I prefer Mr. Ed to Gumby is because he seems intelligent, right? Because he had a kind of a snarky sense of humor. He's smart. Gumby seemed kind of dim-witted. So I was not really a fan of Gumby. He was kind of annoying. The timbre of the sounds that he made I didn't like. So there's a lot of, like, from my childhood, weird quirks about me that
So it's a little personal.
It is personal. But I think Gumby, or Mr. Ed could kick Gumby into a fire because he's clay. He would immediately bake, and then you could just shatter him, like stomp him into dust.
I hadn't considered fire.
And I know what you're thinking, that he might phase. Wouldn't have time.
I do think,
Wouldn't have time.
if I may play actual advocate here, not devil's advocate, I'm standing against you on this one.
Okay.
I think, first of all, you weighing in on which one you would prefer.
So you're
I think
Gumby's advocate.
Yes, I am. 100%.
He's always Gumby's advocate.
I feel that you are letting your animus for Gumby get in the way.
It could.
I feel like
be.
you're not objectively weighing in on this one.
That's absolutely possible.
But I hadn't thought of fire.
Yeah. Because you have to take away the properties that make Gumby, right? His elasticity. That's his biggest skill.
That he could kick Gumby, though. I mean, you're gambling there.
Yeah.
That he could get to him.
Oh, no.
If he could tag Gumby, we can have a conversation. I just don't even know if he could lay a hoof on him.
Again, though, it does sound like you're taking away objectivity because that sounds more like you started with, okay, how do I defeat Gumby?
He's going to kick him into a fire.
Yeah.
Was there ever a
that's a decent case.
Was there ever a Mr. Ed episode where he was able to create fire? Make fire?
I don't know.
I mean, he's got he's got hooves. He can.
I mean, there
like
could
a hit of
just
flint.
be a fire. Like, there's a campfire around. Who was the Wilbur, right? He could
Wilbur.
Yeah.
Wilbur. Be like, hey, Wilbur.
You got a match.
Well, I didn't know we could tag somebody. Gumby's tagging in Pokey, and this is a route in Gumby's favor.
I've kind of always felt bad for Pokey because, like, he's just an animal, right? I mean, but what is Gumby? Also, I feel kind of bad now because we're trying to murder Gumby.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're not. We're just assessing. We're just assessing if it had to happen. I don't have any ill will towards Mr. Ed. I just know that horse is going down.
I'm telling you, like, but Mr. Ed is smart. Gumby's just kind of a dummy. Like, so who said that Mr. Ed could eat Gumby?
I think that might have been Michelle Solinsky. I think she might have mentioned that he could eat Gumby. Yeah.
So see, and then you were like, he could phase out, or like, would stomach acid destroy him? But I don't even think Gumby would necessarily try to escape. Because
we just continue his adventure down there.
I will say there's a lot of context we're missing here. Is there fire nearby? I think now we have to ask that question. Second of all, are they in character? If they're in character, this fight's not really going anywhere because neither one of them have a mean bone in their body.
That's true, yeah. Because I don't think...
Can they tag somebody in? Do we have teammates?
This is way more complex now.
Yeah. It's all right. Well, this is why we ask.
So,
we ask the hard questions.
So also, like, yeah, what would be the pretext for the beginning of their fight, their struggle?
Maybe like Gumby was talking about how he was he wasn't fully appreciating all that Pokey had done for him, and Mr. Ed is pointing that out, and there's a point of conflict over the role of horses and as co-owners of our society, or as just tools for us to use.
Or what about just post-apocalyptic Thunderdome? Like, this is the world we live in, this is where they're at.
This is who's left.
This is who's left.
You know, I talk about this being the apocalypse a lot, you know, and everybody, like, posts those memes, like, what I thought my post-apocalyptic wardrobe would be, what it really is. And I just keep thinking, like, who knew that all of the mundane things we would carry with us into the apocalypse? Like, oh, I gotta go get groceries, and oh, I gotta do the laundry. Like, we're still doing that. It's the apocalypse, and we're still everyday stuff.
How useful would you be in apocalypse, Jackie?
I don't know. How useful am I in this apocalypse? I think it depends on the nature of the apocalypse. Like, in this one, apparently equally as useful as I ever was. But in, like, say, a zombie type apocalypse, I don't know, because I've given this a lot of thought, because like zombie apocalypse was a hot topic a few years ago, and Kim Green, I don't know if you remember Kim Green, when she was here, she's like, no, just shove me down, let them eat me while you get away, I don't care, I don't want to live in that. And I thought about that, I thought, like, do you, like, because you have like,
it'd be useful to have a couple of those around.
like, gather up all your friends who are like, I'm out, use me as bait. But like, would you want to survive? And then, you know, we have a drive to survive, you know, we're living things, but I don't know. But then, like, how do you not survive? Do you throw yourself to the zombies, or like, you know?
I feel like you would be, Jared, you'd be very useful in
I'm good.
apocalypse. Yeah. With all your homesteading, I mean, you're pretty much self-sufficient at this point, right?
Not yet, but I'm getting there. And I'd get there a lot faster if I didn't, like, you know, work.
Well, I mean, if you're self-sufficient.
Sure.
I mean, you might not need the job anymore. I mean, I assume you do it. Well, you probably do it because you enjoy it and such. You don't do it just for to feed yourself.
Don't get me wrong. I fail all the time, but I go into most situations fairly confident.
Okay.
Now, I did grow 6 individual peas last spring.
Very nice.
So 6. That was almost a spoonful.
Did you say you grew 6 peas?
6 peas.
You got to start somewhere.
It was sad. Those little pea pods, they were trying real hard.
That's a story of triumph, right?
6, almost a spoonful. I'm hoping for
There's only one way to go. There's only one direction to go from there.
Right?
From 6 peas.
Right. Yeah. I call my garden the Thunderdome of gardening. Because
Gumby and Mr. Ed are fighting in it.
Because I just threw stuff into it, like literally threw stuff into it. I was like, whatever makes it.
Well, now that
show me what you got.
Now that you've given your answer, you'll have to listen to Pat's episode, because she talks about and gave Andrew some comfort too, that even if you're not necessarily growing things, you are doing things for the environment and the wildlife. And
she's going to make you feel a lot better about those 6 peas.
Good, because the squirrels, they seem to really enjoy the garden.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Oh, don't get me started.
There's a metropolis that you and I don't know about that's going on in the soil. Was the story that she told.
I'm gonna listen to it.
The first year at our new house, the squirrels just decimated. Like, they ate all of my sunflowers, like they were all of the crop, like they were the corn, everything, like they were just decimating it. So I started relocating them, and I got a trap, and I every summer now I move them to the country to a much better life.
You could bring them to my house. We watch the squirrels.
Yeah.
We watch them in our front yard. They run around. We've got a big oak tree in the front yard, and so they love that. And one day I was like, I never see acorns at all from that tree. Why do I not see acorns from that tree?
Gluttons.
The squirrels.
Gluttons.
All of them. And we have a pecan tree in the backyard, and they love it. And it's just like shells everywhere.
So, I'm glad on its own it kind of got a little more positive there. We got dark for a minute.
Did for a while, yeah.
Well, that happens on this show, though. That's just
we careen wildly from minute to minute. Yeah,
it's true. So, one of the reasons we wanted to bring you on was you interact with so many different people here on campus that we wanted to ask you about the million little things that people do every day here on campus to enrich our students' lives and to make OTC what it is.
Okay, I started a note, but it's one of a million amazing things, but I didn't get quite to a million of them. But there's a lot that goes on. I think, unfortunately, we don't all have a position where we get to interact with as many people, and I don't think people really realize the full depth of how amazing the people we have here are, our faculty and our staff. Just, there's some remarkable individuals here on staff. So I'm going to kind of, I have a few notes, but I'm kind of start the beginning of my day, when I first get here. And I come in, and I come through the atrium where the big TVs are and stuff, and I put the apples and oranges in, and I go in through the library to my office, and I always say hello to Duncan. And do you guys know Duncan? He's one of our custodians, and he's one of the most pleasant people without being just like over the top, kind of not syrupy sweet. He's just really genuine and really pleasant and will interact with anyone. And I felt like, you know, when you are on campus early and it's dark out, I always feel a little bit safer knowing Duncan knows I'm going to come through. And if I have any trouble, he's there. And he will always say, if you say, how is it going? How's your day? He'll always say, it's great. And he goes, if it's not, I'm going to change it. And he has that mindset, like, you know, nothing sort of phases him. And he's been here for a long time. And he talks about, like, there's nothing that I would ask anybody else to do that I haven't done. I've done it all before. It doesn't bother me. Like, the little things, the sort of inconveniences that might pop up throughout the day doesn't bother me. That's what I'm here for. I got this. It's just a really great attitude to have. And he does a tremendous amount of community service. Like, every time I talk to him, like, Thursday night I did this, and Saturday night I'm doing this, and I helped somebody do this. And he's just really, really involved in the community and does a lot of community service. And it's just, you know, does everybody know that we have amazing people, or do they just be like, oh, Duncan is the guy who, you know, cleans up?
Yeah.
So, one thing I noted was, like, Brian Towery, who was our 20-week welding instructor, he left recently to go back to industry, but he did something that I don't think a lot of people would expect a welding instructor to be doing with their students. He did annotation activities with his students before they prepped for projects. So, you know, you think of welding, a lot of people think more hands-on. They don't really think about sort of breaking down documents and words and kind of doing those types of activities. But he was absolutely doing that. Then, let me see my notes here. Jeff Jones. He is all about growth. And you guys talked to him on your podcast, but you've not been able to see his class and to see him interact with the students. First of all, he and I worked together on his class, and he put so much of his rich experience and thoughtfulness into the course itself. But then his interactions with students are just absolutely remarkable. He is always super, super positive. Well, it's Jeff, so of course he's super positive. But he always gives students, I think that people just think of Jeff as this positive person who never says anything kind of negative, but he is constructive. So when he talks to students and gives them feedback, he is positive. And it's not just that sort of sandwich method, but he'll say, here's where you have space to grow. Take it further. Like, he's always sort of challenging students. Go further. Do this more. You've got this. Make it strong. Believe in what you're doing well, and take it further. So I don't think everybody really gets that. They just think of Jeff as kind of real positive. But Jonesy is a great instructor.
Sure. I don't think that would surprise anybody.
Joy Mello is one of our CWD instructors, and her
Center for Workforce Development.
Yes. And her sort of life story is remarkable. So there's two things I want to mention about Joy. She basically came back from the dead, and like, she had some very traumatic health experiences and had to overcome so much, and you wouldn't know it because she is brilliant, she is driven, she is like able to tackle challenges that seem insurmountable. And then the second thing is we've worked on, and it will be offered in the future, a class that's about death. So it's for like hospice nurses to work with their patients and their patients' families. But it's really a class that I think everybody should take, because nobody gets to escape death, right? So there's so much in it that really talks about like the realities of that process and the compassion that you should approach it with. And really, I think everybody should take this death class. It is kind of a bummer, as you might imagine, but it's really good. It's really good.
Let's enrich the sales pitch here. When you say death class, are we talking about end of life caring, or is it more philosophical? Or
no, it's end of life caring. There's necessarily some of sort of that ethics and a little bit of philosophy in there. Living a good life, having a good death, and it's things that we like in everyday life. We kind of just don't want to think about death and kind of push it away. But if you're a hospice nurse, you have to be able to deal with that, and you have to help other people deal with that, patients deal with that, families deal with that.
And hospice services really are just important and crucial. And if you've ever had the unfortunate experiences of needing that, you'll know though how important it actually is, and not only what they do to help those that are passing, but those that are surviving as well, right?
Exactly. And that's why I think it's a class that anybody could benefit from. So
learning a lot today about all aspects of what we talked about. The preschoolers, talk about the hospice carers.
Right, we've got the
whole experience
thing.
of
So let's see. Rebecca Caceres is one of the biggest nerds when it comes to research and stats, and it's amazing. And I love her talking about it because she cares about it, and she just gets so excited about it. And I was able to connect her with Stephanie Davenport, who teaches a research class, and they had such a great time exchanging ideas and getting really excited. And Rebecca is really brave in her classroom. She's kind of, she's not the most gregarious person, right? But in her class, she's animated and she moves around and she talks to students, and she's not afraid to sort of be goofy and silly, and she's always trying to make things fun. And you wouldn't necessarily, if you met her like in a meeting, you wouldn't necessarily get that from her. But it's there, and it's amazing, and her students appreciate it. John Proctor is a networking instructor. He is just a brilliant genius princess. And he, this past semester, did sort of this mastery-based learning approach. So where he would have students, like, this is the sort of unit exam, the hands-on portion, and then the written portion. And he would have the students do that first. Like, do that first. And then if you've got it, great. Okay, you don't have to do anything else. You're done with the unit. If you didn't, well, you have to do the discussions. So, the class discussions are always there. But then if you didn't get like 90% on it, go back and do these homework assignments and these practice assignments. And they're not for a grade, but they're practice. And then when you feel ready, let me know. And so he would have the students message him and say, like, okay, I did these practice assignments. I get where I was, I feel confident. I feel ready. And then they would do the exam. And if they got it, great. And if not, then they would have to conference with him. So they'd have a Zoom session and talk about, okay, where are you going wrong? What are you struggling with? And he'd give them additional practice measures, and they'd talk about some things. And then they would go and practice and then come back and go through. And the third attempt, really, if you didn't hit that high threshold on the third attempt, whatever you got was your grade. But potentially, like, everybody could get really high A's. And students really performed very well in that class compared to like previous performance. And that was the only thing that changed. But he is a brilliant genius princess and is constantly trying new and innovative things. Okay. Steve Austin is a welding instructor, and he is one of the most earnest individuals you will ever meet. And he's funny. You don't know it at first because he seems real quiet, but he's funny. He's hilarious. And he is trying something really different this semester. And it's a guided notes. So it's a thing that I pitch to a lot of faculty, because students don't always come in with the best note-taking skills. And also because if students are just giving back information the same way, like, it doesn't have the same power cognitively as if they see information or hear information in one format and then have to manipulate it and reproduce it in a different format. So that's guided notes in a nutshell.
Being able to just repeat something back doesn't mean you understand it.
Yeah.
There's this really great example of that called the montellation of Traxylene that I give at the beginning of 105 or of my intro physics class, and basically it's all nonsense, but you can ask quiz questions and get them correct. Right. So it's this idea that, I can look at I can look at a sentence and repeat back what you want to hear, but that doesn't mean I have any idea what this means, nor is it useful to me, right?
Yeah. So guided notes is something I've pitched to a lot of different people, and a lot of different faculty across campus are using them, but Steve is using them in his welding class. And again, I don't think people really associate that level of, academic style work in the welding classes, but it does happen. Those faculty are always looking for new and innovative ways to do things and engage students in their classrooms. So, and
I told you that's I at some point am going to get certified in welding here. That's
going to happen
as soon as I can find time.
Do the 10-week class. They have the 10-week class.
Yeah, I want to shoot for it.
There's a 10. I think the recent one they came up with a 10-week, but the 20-week welding class too.
Here we go. Piece of cake.
It's
not a piece of cake, actually, but
I mean,
it's not easy, but it's simple.
Real confused about a lot of things related to welding.
When I was doing, I think this was when we were hired, and I had to do New Faculty Institute. One thing they asked us to do was to look at a lesson plan of another instructor who wasn't in our discipline, and I ended up looking at something that from a newly hired welding instructor, I believe it was.
Oh, wow.
And they gave us like this whole lesson plan, and they were like, "Do you have any constructive criticism?" I was like, "I don't even know what I'm looking at." No, absolutely not. I have no feedback, no notes. Yeah, and it is very striking because it's so far out of my barn, and you have all these preconceptions of welding that you've pieced together from basically
movies.
From movies.
Yeah, from
right?
movies.
TV and
I
movies.
think the only time I've seen welding in a movie was one of the Herbie the Love Bug movies. It was the only time I've seen welding. But and then you see it actually the academic side of it, and you're like, holy smokes, there is a lot of moving parts here.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. When I do the guided notes with a faculty member, or when I work with faculty members on anything, I learn some about what they're teaching. So that's why my job is a dream job. Like when I was a kid, I used to imagine like if I won the lottery, I was going to hire all of the best private tutors in the world and to teach me everything. That was my childhood dream. And so now like that dream has come true and they pay me for it.
That's some poetic justice there.
Yeah, right? So I didn't win the lottery, but I am getting paid. So it's kind of almost exactly the same, right?
Well, let me, I had this question burning in my head, but I now know after listening to you talk about all these different fields that I don't know if there's one piece of advice you can give, but towards the top of your list, looking at all these lesson plans, all these instructional designs that you help put together, what are one or two things you wish faculty would keep in mind as they're putting these courses together?
Oh, goodness. Okay, because that kind of depends on discipline.
Yeah.
I think one thing is there's no one answer. There's no one way to teach. The best way to teach is the way that works for you and your students. Full stop. That's the best way. But you get new students all the time. So that's
what's so challenging, right? As soon as you think you've got it figured out, the population can dramatically change.
Well, and a lot of times I hear frustrations from faculty. Students keep making the same mistakes. They keep getting this wrong. They keep not understanding. But they don't. They're doing it once. They're having that trouble once. And then the next group comes in and has that trouble once. But you're seeing it multiple times, but it's different students every time. But I gave some advice at an adjunct meeting for manufacturing. I think one of the best pieces of advice I could give is like, don't underestimate your students and don't let them underestimate themselves. So don't let them set a low bar for themselves. They can do it. They might need some help, and that bar is going to be different for each student, but don't let them underestimate themselves. Don't let them sell themselves short, because they're remarkably capable people, and they just need the tools and the space to demonstrate that remarkable quality.
I came across just a slight different phrasing in how I talk to students who were having a difficult time. And I tell you, just a tweak, it made a huge amount of difference. I've had every semester, you have students who aren't just struggling, they're tanking. Mm-hmm. And what you do, and there's any number of issues there, very few of them, it's almost rarely that they're just hopeless causes. The far more frequent cause is that there's something outside of school, or it's in school, they just don't know how to do the things you're asking them to do. And instead of approaching them and saying something like, we're really off track here, we're really falling behind, we're really not getting the grades we need to get, you just say, I don't think, I should say, this is me talking, the grades that I'm seeing from you don't reflect to me the person that you are. And their heads start bobbing up and down. They're like, that's correct. That's what's happening. It's not that I'm screwing this up. It's that the person I am is not coming through in the work. So how can we connect those two?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not a dramatic change that I've done. It's just a tweaking.
Right.
But that makes all the difference, and forces the student not to drag themselves any more than they have to.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it that's happening? I always like questions more than like guidance or statements. Like questions. What is happening here? Like what? And I think most faculty would be sincere in asking that question. Okay, what is happening? Like where is the disconnect? What is working well for you? What isn't? So one of the most remarkable things, and I know a lot of faculty do this, so it's not just this particular faculty member, but Jessica Gerard teaches history, and I've worked with her for several semesters now.
The great Dr. Gerard, yeah.
She was actually the first guest we invited, but she wasn't able to come on, so we're still waiting to have her on.
Yeah.
You should. She is remarkable, and she is doing all of the things. Like every sort of thing that I've suggested we implement, and we've really dug deep. Like we're looking at the exam questions and working back. So she's really great she's a model of backwards design. She's looking at like, okay, this is where I want students to get. Okay, what's happening here? And really working back, how am I going to get them there? What do they need? So we examined her exam questions like thoroughly, just for the structure of the questions, and then do these questions really align well with the objectives? So should we change them? And then, okay, so what materials, what practice assignments are students getting to support those test questions? How are we preparing them for that? And then what content are we giving them that prepares them for those assignments, that prepares them for the test, which gets them to the objectives? So model of backwards design. But and she puts a ton of like, here's how to study. Here are great study tools. Here's how your brain works. Here's the science behind it. But students almost always sort of take a real sharp dip after that first exam. And we know that's going to happen. But she's been doing this for decades before I ever worked with her. She gives students an opportunity to do a reflection. And that reflection after that exam is purely about, how did you prepare for this exam? What could you have done differently? What do you think you'll do differently moving forward? How did you manage your time? What resources in the course were helpful to you? What did you, like all about is metacognitive stuff, like about how did you do this?
When does she do this? Is it like an exit interview at the end of the semester?
No, it's after the first exam. And she gives them, it's like a 100-point exam. She gives them 20 points back. So that moves your grade. If you bombed that test, you're still okay if you do that reflection, and it's extra credit points. It gives it back to you. So the students who do that always perform much better. The students that remain in the class always perform better on subsequent exams, just because now they know what to expect. And also she does have a practice exam. It's not the same questions, but she has a practice exam that sort of is harder than the exam itself. So if you can answer these questions, you're going to answer any question that's on the actual exam. But she does study sessions with students and Zoom office hours, and she gives them graphic organizers to work through the lessons on, and like she's doing all of the things, but it's remarkable. But that reflection piece, I think, is one of the greatest things about her course. Is one of my favorite things about her course. So
shout out to Dr. Gerard.
She's
been
always
a leader in my department for as long as I've been here.
Yeah. She really cares about the students, and she's always reaching out to the students. What's happening? What's going on? Don't get discouraged. You can do it. She's a great cheerleader for students, really. So, yeah. But there's just a billion remarkable people on this campus, and I'm super lucky that I get to see so many of them.
Unfortunately, we only have enough time for 1 million.
Yeah. So, but every and not just on this campus. Like, most of the faculty and staff that I interact with are on this campus, but I have gone to some of the other campuses, and I used to go way more often, but a lot of the folks that I knew at like Waynesville are gone now. Virginia and Roslyn, they were amazing. Like, that campus has a totally different vibe. Down in Richwood Valley, a lot of the faculty I've worked with are actually home base on Richwood Valley, and I didn't even know that. Like Michelle, I didn't know she was down there, and Lindsay and Craig Granger's down there. I thought he was up here, but yeah. So there's so many amazing faculty here, and I don't think people get to see the depth of it. So I don't know how to get people to see that. I mean,
I'll tell you how. We replace Ozzy the Eagle and just the Eagle mascot altogether with Miss Jacque Harris. And the best part is we don't need a mascot costume. You just have you run around
It's me dragging this box around.
And you tell everybody about Oh That's Cool podcast, where they get to hear all about the great people that work here.
Yeah, that's why I was super excited that you guys are doing this podcast, because it's like, this, like, people, they need to know this. They need to know how awesome the faculty and the staff here are. Like, you guys should interview everybody. Yeah. But like Vicki McDonald is fabulous.
I, in fact, talked to her about coming on, and I am encouraging her to start her own podcast that I'm going to produce. I'm working on. So my idea is to get a lockable case that we can have all this equipment ready to go, and it's rentable in the library, so you can pull it into one of the side rooms and record.
Nice.
That may be a little farther down the road, but in the meantime, I want to get her first episode off the ground and have her doing kind of a student-focused, students listen to podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect, because she's the student engagement coordinator something. Titles are so long here.
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah.
So besides Vicki, then who's someone in early childhood that we should have on?
Marilyn and Jennifer are great, but also
last names too, if you don't mind.
Marilyn Madden, she's the center or the program director for early childhood education, so the college courses that we teach, and then Jennifer Crouch is the director of the center itself. And they're both wonderful, amazing people. They would be fabulous to have on. But I think really, like, the people that you might want to interview the teachers, the ECD classroom teachers, because they don't get to interact with the rest of the college faculty and staff as much, and they don't get heard from as much. So, like, I'm in the classroom with Katrina McMillan and Carmela Berry, and then Beth Melvin is the kiddos that are about to go off to kindergarten next year. And then I don't know everybody's last name. I know mostly just their first names.
Well, we could start with Katrina McMillan.
There you go.
We'll reach out and see if she'll come on and talk to us.
Yeah, they're amazing people. They're amazing people. They really are. I'm trying to think of if I do know anybody else's.
That is a very unique skill set, being able to teach a room full of. I mean, I've got 2 of them and I can't manage them. I don't know how they do an entire room of them.
Oh, it's okay. So one thing is the staffing. They are adequately staffed. As a parent, you're not adequately staffed.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're adequately staffed.
As a parent, you're not adequately staffed.
No, parents are not adequately staffed. It's just you or 2 of you.
That is such a good point.
And and at all times, like, but they have, you know, a ratio in the classroom, which is probably higher than you have in your home, but they have people who can come in for a break and give them that. They have relief pitchers, right? So,
and they really do take advantage of knowing like how much you actually care about them and are responsible for them. So,
the kids will do that with their teachers. Yeah, that emotional weaponry is not relegated only to parents.
That does happen in the classroom.
Yeah, but
well, a litany of just amazing people and practices that you shared with us today. Your appreciation and the heroes you have over at the Early Childhood Center, and the third annual Springfield Votes happening in March. So much going on today, Andrew. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
I didn't know that either.
Now you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.